Thank you, guys. That was just great. What an incredible January this has been. We have organized, cleaned up, cleared out, decluttered. We took care of some of those nagging tasks that kept getting moved to the bottom of our list. We've seen the importance of exercising better and sleeping more, and now we've even learned how to whistle a happy tune. We have been actively working towards happiness. Carlos Castaneda made this observation: the trick is in what one emphasizes. We either make ourselves miserable or we make ourselves happy. The amount of work is the same. So today we finished up January's happiness project topic of boosting our energy with the final resolution for this month: act more energetic. And this is based on Gretchen's third commandment: act the way I want to feel. So you all have a beautiful little teal insert in your bulletin today. Every month on the last Sunday of the month, we're going to be giving you the next month's happiness topics and events. And on the back this month, there are Gretchen's 12 commandments. So you can keep this on your refrigerator. She has also blogged about what she calls the 10 most pernicious myths about happiness. And I started with number 10, mainly because it fits today's topic. So you can read those when you get home. So she reflected on this third commandment in her blog. And again, if you have not gone to her website, happinessproject.com, please do so. It is full of great stuff. And I decided, rather than paraphrasing Gretchen, I'm going to share her eloquence with you from this blog. She says, one of my happiness project resolutions is to meditate on koans. In Buddhist tradition, a Zen koan is a question or a statement that can't be understood logically. I myself hate them. That was me, not Gretchen. I like logic. She says monks meditate on koans as a way to abandon their dependence on reason in their pursuit of enlightenment. The most famous koan is probably, 2 hands clap and there is a sound. What is the sound of one hand? See why I hate them? Because they make you crazy. Gretchen says, I'm haunted by my own koans, lines that flicker through my mind and evade logical thinking. One of my koans is from the Bible, Mark 4:25. For he that hath, to him shall be given, and he that hath not, from him shall be taken even that which he hath. This doesn't sound really fair, does it, on first reading? She says, I think the meaning of Jesus' words is something like, those who have sought to understand divine truth will learn more, and those who haven't tried won't even remember the little that they've learned. But whatever Jesus meant in the context of that verse, I find myself thinking about it within the happiness context, and I've often reflected that this statement sums up one of the cruel truths about happiness and about human nature in general. You get more of what you have. When you feel friendly, people want to be your friend. When you feel sexy, people are attracted to you. And I figured if David Owen Ritz can say damn from the platform, I can say sexy from the platform. When you feel confident, others have confidence in you. This truth is cruel because so often you want others to give you what you feel you're lacking. It's when you're feeling isolated and awkward that you want people to be friendly. When you're feeling ugly, you want someone to tell you how sexy and attractive you are. When you're feeling insecure, you wish someone would express confidence in you. During my happiness project, I've been startled to discover the efficacy of the third of my personal commandments: act the way I want to feel. She elaborates, this commandment is important for two reasons. First, although we think we act because of the way we feel, often we feel because of the way we act. So by acting the way we wish we felt, we can change our emotions, a strategy that is uncannily effective. Second, the world's reaction to us is quite influenced by the way we act toward the world. For example, in what she calls situation evocation, that almost sounds like something that would have been on those old Saturday morning cartoons, you know, the ones, the Bill on the steps of the Capitol, and my name is Bill and I'm going to the Hill. Come on, people, work with me here. I know you remember those. Schoolhouse Rock, thank you. Thank you. Okay, for example, in situation evocation, we spark a response from people that reinforces a tendency we already have. For example, if I act irritable all the time, the people around me are going to treat me with less patience and helpfulness, which will in turn stoke my irritability. If I can manage to joke around and lighten up, I'll evoke a situation in which the people around me are more likely to joke around too. Life isn't fair. People with a propensity to good cheer will find themselves in a friendly, cheerful environment, while people who are already angry or crabby will find themselves surrounded by uncooperative, suspicious people. For he that hath, to him shall be given, and he that hath not, from him shall be taken even that which he hath. And she concludes this train of thought with this, which leads, as always, to the same conclusion, that even though it's tempting to sometimes think that I'd be much happier if other people would behave differently toward me, not that any of you enlightened beings in this room would think that, the only person whose behavior I can change is myself. If I want people to be friendlier to me, I must be friendlier. If I want my husband to be tender and romantic, I must be tender and romantic. If I want our household atmosphere to be lighthearted, I must be lighthearted. Goethe agreed. I have come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. And he that brings a sunny day will find a sunny day waiting for him. Kind of sounds like wherever I go, there I am, doesn't it? And this brings us to our movie. I promised that once a month I would do a reel-to-reel. That's today. And our movie is Up. The kids are going to get the balloons, by the way. So this brings us to Carl Fredricksen, one of the stars of the movie Up, voiced by the great Ed Asner. I absolutely adore this movie. Ever since we got Netflix, we've really stopped buying movies. I have 2 physical copies of this movie. That's how much I love it. And what's great about it is it's so rich and so deep and has so many levels to it. I actually did this last year. I used this movie to demonstrate the power of release. I'm using it for a whole different reason today, and yet it is just as appropriate. We, at the beginning of the movie, see 8 minutes of what I saw on Facebook was one of the greatest love stories ever told. Animated, silent for the most part. In fact, I saw a little blurb that said Pixar told a better love story in 8 minutes than the Twilight Saga did in 3 or 4 movies, however many there are now. So after the death of his beloved Ellie, which is where the action of the movie actually starts, Carl's grief is obvious and all-consuming. He looks and he feels old. He walks with a cane. It's one of those with the 4 little things, and he has tennis balls on the bottom of it. He needs a power chair to get down the stairs from the bedroom to the kitchen. His days are spent mourning his beloved Ellie and holding on to their home and their life together. Carl also appears angry, which can also oftentimes accompany grief. He's angry at Ellie's death. He's angry at the world moving on. He's angry at any progress that appears at his door. Day after day, he sits in his chair beside Ellie's empty chair, looking at her scrapbook over and over again, her adventure book. But one day, Carl is forced to action, and sometimes that's what happens. Sometimes we're forced to act in a certain way. Well, he was forced into action because it was either that or be forced to leave his beloved home. Doesn't this look like the Up House? Is this the coolest thing? Thanks, guys, for letting me use it today. So Carl, who's been a balloon salesman all his life, blows up a huge amount of balloons to fly his house out of the city and down to South America, to Paradise Falls, which is where he and Ellie had always dreamed of putting their home. Now, unbeknownst to Carl, he has a stowaway, a young wilderness explorer named Russell, who is intent on helping Carl because he needs to earn his last little badge. The badge he gets, as he tells Carl, for helping a really old person. So on their adventure together, Carl and Russell, and you gotta know in the beginning, Carl's not too sure about Russell. Didn't have any kids, didn't know what to do with kids, but he and Russell bond on their adventure through the jungle, and they meet up with Doug, the talking dog. One of the absolute funniest moments in the movie is when Russell says to Carl, "Can I keep him? Can I keep him?" And Carl says, "No." And Russell looks at him and says, "But it's a talking dog." Even in an animated movie, that's something amazing. So they bond together, and they also meet Kevin, a very large tropical bird. And in an interesting twist, they meet Charles Muntz, who had been Carl and Ellie's childhood hero, but through this adventure turns into Carl's nemesis. So Carl and Russell are walking the house over to Paradise Falls. But Carl gets distracted. Didn't you love the reading that Lenore read earlier? Sometimes we need to be distracted away from the rut that we're in. Well, Carl was distracted from his goal of walking the house to Paradise Falls because he needed to rescue Russell and Kevin from the nefarious Muntz. So in a pivotal scene, Russell and Kevin are off getting into trouble, and Carl's in a sulk. And he's sitting alone again in his chair, right next to Ellie's empty chair. And once again, he picks up that scrapbook, her adventure book, as he's done countless times before, looking through the now tattered pages. Except this time, he gets right up to the page that's always stopped him, the page that she had written on, "Things I'm going to do." Because that's where he thought the book stopped. But this time, for some reason, his finger caught on the next page, and as he turned it, he saw a glimpse of a page he'd never seen before, and he sees their wedding picture. And he keeps turning the pages, and he sees that Ellie has documented their entire life together. And on the very last page, it's a picture of Ellie in her chair, obviously older and not well, gazing out of her window. And she's written on that page, "Thanks for the adventure. Now go out and have a new one. Love, Ellie." Oh, God, that gets me every time. Because Carl sees his life in a whole new way. He finally sees that his life with Ellie was the adventure. All this time, he thought that they hadn't gone on the adventure and that she was disappointed. Come to find out that she loved her life with Carl. Every flat tire, every broken leg, every tree that fell on their roof. Ellie had always understood that this was the adventure, and Carl now did too. So with his new perspective on his life, Carl now takes action. He sets out to rescue Russell, who had grabbed a bunch of the balloons off the house. Russell was very willing to take action, by the way. And he tried to go after him, but the balloons had lost so much air that the weight of the house, they could no longer lift the weight of the house. And so in an incredibly powerful scene, Carl throws everything out of the house. Everything. Pictures of Ellie, the big jar of coins that was their Go to Paradise Falls fund, even the last two chairs. And as they pan away and you see the house finally moving now that it has a much lighter load, you see their two chairs lovingly placed on the cliff, looking over on the falls. This scene is such a powerful metaphor for what we need to do, to become willing to do, in order to fully embrace the adventure that we're on. Carl couldn't start his new adventure until he let go of his past, literally dumped his past on the cliff, and until he was willing to act differently. And even more specifically and more importantly, he was willing to act differently than he felt, because he still wasn't feeling necessarily happy, but he was willing to act it. Now, by the end of the movie, Carl is definitely acting and feeling more energetic. He has thrown away his cane. He gave the tennis balls to the dogs. He has a sword fight, not literally, but figuratively, with the canes, with Muntz. He has slid down the outside of a dirigible. He's rescued his friends, and he's brought them all safely home. So Carl's physical transformation is obvious to the audience. But there's also been a more subtle transformation by the end of this story. Carl, and I don't know how animators do this, they're brilliant. Carl actually looks lighter by the end of the movie, doesn't he? He looks younger by the end of the movie because he's acting younger and lighter. And we might notice that that's because there is now a child in his life. One of the major disappointments of Carl and Ellie's life together was their inability to have a child. And by becoming willing to help Russell and let Russell help him, in other words, by acting like a parent, Carl became a surrogate father to Russell and began a whole new adventure with Russell and Russell's family and Russell's life. So, how do you want to feel?
Wonderful. Happy. Energetic.
We'll try that again. How would you like to feel? There. And it doesn't even have to be happy, although that would be good because this is the Happiness Project. But get clear about how you want to feel. That's the first thing. The first step is so often we go through our days not even sure how we want to feel. Get clear about how you want to feel, and then be willing to act like that. We need to become willing to get off of our chairs, literally and figuratively, and off of our couches and turn the next page in our adventure book. Now, sometimes it's easier to act the way we want to feel than others, because sometimes stuff happens in our lives, doesn't it? Sometimes we lose jobs. Sometimes we lose houses. Sometimes we lose friends. Sometimes we lose family. None of this work is ever about denying what is going on in our lives. Never. It is about choosing how we're going to respond to what's going on in our lives. We can choose to be happy regardless of what is happening in our lives. Happiness is a choice. Carl could have kept sitting on that chair, but he didn't. He acted the way he wanted to feel. I've shared in the past with some of you my occasional bouts with depression. Depression's a real thing. It's not just an emotional thing, it's a chemical thing. But one of the ways that I have worked through in my life that interesting experience is to start acting the way I want to feel. And one of the best ways I know to shift that energy and to act the way I want to feel is to become grateful. Having an attitude of gratitude is not a cliche. It can literally sometimes be a lifesaver. The other wonderful thing about becoming grateful and deciding that we want to act the way we want to feel is that it helps shift the focus of attention off ourselves. One of the best ways that I know to feel better is to help someone. I also clean out closets, I'm just saying, but I'll help Annette by cleaning out her closet and kill two birds with one stone. Yes, just like Carl did. Notice Carl was so happy once he decided to take action and help Russell. That's not a coincidence. Act the way we want to feel. We have come here to be a blessing to the world. We've been singing that song for meditation all month long, and there's a reason for that. Because we're not just boosting our energy so we feel better, although yes, that is very important. Remember, oxygen mask on yourself first. But we're doing it so that we can be of greater service, so that we can be a blessing to the world. The trick is in what one emphasizes. We either make ourselves miserable or we make ourselves happy. The amount of work is the same. I invite us to put work into making ourselves and others happy so that we can truly be the biggest blessing to the world that we know how to be.